A couple of people have asked me about the details of the construction of my chicken house, and I hope that I can do this in a way that will make sense, and I hope I can remember exactly how I did this. The house is 8 foot by 8 foot square, and I started off by building the foundation. I used 4 by 4 foot posts, and I cut them off 2 feet high. I've figured out where all of these posts would end up, and I dug holes in the ground and filled them with concrete, and I made sure that those little concrete pads were level with each other. And then I have 9 of them. You can see it in here. But there's 9 legs on this chicken house. So then I nailed those legs to 2 by 4s and made a frame 8 foot by 8 foot square. And I probably should have used 2 by 6s for that, but I was being cheap. Then after I had that square, I made my floor joists, and I ran them, I think, hateful. See what I put up with? This rooster is so mean. Okay, then I ran my floor joist from one end to the other, and I braced them in the center with little pieces of 2x4 in between. Let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 floor joists under there. So then I had my floor framed up, and I put chipboard down on the floor. So then I framed up the walls. Actually, I built the windows next, so that I would know where to place the windows. I used 11 by 14 inch glass for the windows, and for the outer frames I used 2 by 2s, and I notched out the 2 by 2s here on each one of them so that they would fit together and give them more strength. And I screwed these together, and I ran some shoe molding along the inner side of the frame, and then I put the glass in and used putty to hold the windows in. I have push points in there, and then I puttied it. So that gave me the windows. So once I had the windows, I measured it out so that they would fall evenly along the wall. And there's 23 inches on each side of the windows, and I have 18 inches in the center, roughly. So I framed up the walls. I hope that the camera will pick that up. You can see how I framed the side walls, and how I spaced the windows in there. And then once I had the side walls framed up, then I nailed them to the floor, and I framed the end wall. And when I framed this, I built the nesting boxes first so that I could space them out evenly. Like I said in my other video, I thought that I picked up 1 by 12 when I bought the wood for these boxes, but I actually picked up 1 by 10. The boxes ideally should be 1 foot by 1 foot square. In spite of the fact that I made them a bit small, the chickens fit in there just fine. But I would recommend making them out of the 1 by 12. And all you need to do is build your outer box, make it 2 foot square. You have this side here, and then a piece in between, make a 2 foot square box, and then cut a shelf that will fit in between right here, and then just cut a piece of wood that will fit in the center. and that helps to hold up the weight of the center shelf. And then put another piece of wood here. And since I made these a bit smaller than I really wanted, I ended up adding another strip of wood to the front right here, and then I surrounded that with, I think it's about 1x2, and that gave a little ledge that the chickens can hop up onto and then go into the box. I don't know if that's really necessary, but as you can see, that's the way it ended up. And then once I had the nesting boxes built, then I framed the back wall, and I made it 4 feet high, and the frame stopped right here where the shelf is, and it's just a rectangle. And then you can see how I spaced out the 2x4s in the wall for the 2 boxes. And then after I had that end done, I just nailed that to the floor. So now I had 3 walls. And for the wall with the door, I made the door 5 feet 3 because I was afraid that if I went any taller, then it would run into this peak here. But after I've done this, you can make that door at least 6 feet tall and not have a problem with it. So I've framed up the door, and then I added these side walls is what I did, and ran that square. So then after I had that wall done, I nailed it up, and then at that point you need to try to get your wall squared up. And I didn't do such a hot job of that, and I think this chicken house is about 1/2 inch out of square. So after I had the 4 walls done, then I added the rafters, and I had a time with that. And because it's out of square, they didn't fit exactly like they should have. You can see I have a little gap up there. And after I had the rafters up, then I finished framing this door wall by adding these 2x4s. And then same thing on the back side, but you can't see it because of the shelf that I have up there. And then I added the chipboard to the roof, and I had a time getting that up on the roof by myself. And I found in the end I nailed a strip of 2x4 across the bottom edge of the roof, and then I propped some 2x4s against the side of the house, and I slid the plywood up those 2x4s and up onto the roof. So that's how I got that up there, and then I shingled the roof and added the siding on the sides. Here's the construction of the inside of the windows. You can see I have the 2x4 framed here, and then I added a 1x4 strip, I think, to the inside. And then I have strips of wood to act as a window stop out there. Here's the outside. I have that 1x4 or so here, whatever fit. And then I have these strips of wood to act as a window stop. And then I cased it out with, I think, 1x2s. And that's how the windows were done. And then I varnished it out with 1x4s, and a 1x4 fit right up in here exactly, and then a 1x4 here. Here's how I made the door. It's just a piece of the siding. Probably going to be hard to see with the sun shining on this and the shadows, but I've screwed strips of wood to the siding for the door, and I just framed around it with the 1x2s and then put the X's on it. That's the door. It's held up well, it hasn't warped or anything. And I cased out the door with 1x4s. I nailed 1x4s to the corners and to the top. When I built the coop, I didn't have a top on it initially, and the chickens, some of the hens were getting out and getting to the garden. So I covered the top of this with some of the some plastic netting that I got from Walmart. And I had this on here good and tight, and within a week or so it stretched and sagged like this. I need to tighten it up again, but that stuff looks awful. It really does stretch and sag bad. But it keeps the chickens in, so I guess that's what really matters. When I built this, I built the fence so that the house was inside the fence. And the rooster turned out to be mean, so I fenced off like a little vestibule inside so that I could go in there and get into the door without having to deal with him. And this vestibule actually works out well, because if there's chicken in the house and she runs out the door when I open it, then she gets trapped in this little vestibule, and then all I have to do is catch her out of here and send her back into the house. Here's how I made the doors on the nesting boxes. I just took a piece of siding and screwed 1x2s all around it to make the door. These doors were a little bit tricky because the outer door needed to be flush with the house. So the inner door had to be set in, and then I put strips of wood around the nesting box to act as a stop for this door. And this is how I put that together. And this worked out well. I haven't had a snake problem in here yet. And I just put a little catch at the top. A little thing there. And I have hasp on all of the windows and doors. For the chicken door, I framed it up so that the opening would be 12x12, but then after I cased the opening out, it ended up 10.5 by 10.5. So you might want, if you want a 12x12 opening, then you need to allow for that casing. And here's what the chicken door looks like on the outside. I had a problem with the door swelling when it rained, and I had to take it off and adjust that, trim it down, and move the hinges. So that's why that ended up looking the way it is. I have a cutout in the fence here so that I can reach in and open and close this door. And ideally, it would be a real good idea to have an automatic chicken door opener so that you don't have to worry about something getting in there at night and getting the chickens and having to open it and close that door yourself all the time. The chicken walk is just a dog-eared fence panel, and I nailed little wood strips to it, and it works great. So it's salt treated, and it's held up to the weather. And as you can see, they use it. There's the steps, and as you can see, I haven't gotten around to replacing them. I would suggest putting a stringer up the center for added strength and maybe even thicker treads on the steps. I put a vent in the roof to try to keep it cooler in here, and I framed up this storage area. It's 2 feet deep so that I could use half a sheet of chipboard, and then I just covered the outside with chicken wire to keep the chickens out of there. And it's been nice to be able to store the straw and the wood chips right here where I need them. I hung their feed from a nail right there from the bottom of the storage shelf, and I put a roost down here, and they still like to sit on that during the day. And I covered the floor with a piece of vinyl. It was just a remnant that I picked up, and I put shoe molding all around the edge to keep that from popping up and becoming a problem. And I'd worried that maybe the chickens would slide on this vinyl, that they wouldn't be able to walk on it, but that hasn't been a problem. And it's worked out great because the chicken poop doesn't stick to it, so it's very easy to clean. I've said in the other video that they couldn't hop high enough to get up on this roost. This one is about 4 feet tall, but now that they're older, that's where they sleep at night. I have their feed here, and that just seems to be a poop collector from where they sleep up on that roost. And their water there, and I recommend having a large waterer because they will go through that pretty fast. And we don't have many freezing nights here, but this winter it got down below freezing a couple of times, so I just hung a heat lamp over the water to keep that from freezing, and it kept the house a little bit warm for them. So that's pretty much all I can think of about the inside of the house. And even though the side walls are only 4 feet tall, I think anybody could walk around in there comfortably and not have to worry about stooping over or banging their head or anything like that. It turned out to be a very nice size. Here's the back side of the house. As you can see, it's the same as the other side, and you can see the roof vent up there. So that's how I built the chicken house. I built it entirely by myself, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm not a carpenter, but my husband used to be one, so I did have all the tools known to mankind available to me, and that was a big help. I'm not sure of the exact cost of this because I was contending with the rain the whole time I was building it, and I didn't want to buy all of the materials at one time and have them sit there and get wet. So I was buying a little here and a little there, just as much as I could use in one day. I think it cost roughly $600 to build this. So that's how I did it. I hope it helps.